Alright guys, welcome back to Leon's AP Psychology. As a continuation of the previous lecture, we're going to start with talking about selective inattention in the range of AP Psychology Unit 3. Now, what selective inattention is the exact opposite of selective attention, but it's on the same concept. It happens because of the same concept. There's something called inattentional blindness. This is about failing to see visible objects when our attention is directed elsewhere. For example, if you're focused on watching people pass a basketball around, you may not notice people who are walking by, even if they're in a really funny outfit like a gorilla suit. Now, very similar to selective attention, except that this is talking about your inability to see something rather than just what you're focused on. Now, because of the selective attention that is happening around your status quo, such as watching people playing basketball, your brain may choose, without you even thinking about it, to just ignore the surroundings that interfere with your focus on passing the basketball around, right? So even though if somebody may be walking in a very funny costume like a gorilla costume or like a Chewbacca costume from Star Wars, you may really not be able to notice that person walking around because your selective inattention is kicking in, because as a result of your selective attention towards some other object that is more binding to your interest. Now let's talk about change blindness. This is failing to notice changes in the environment. The example here you see on the picture is when now you're only looking at the man in the old man in the red clothing is only looking at like the man, right? He's looking at like nothing else than like not the man, but then something that is very far and distinct, right? Something that's very far and distinct. It seems like so because there's no context. Oh well, here is the context, but then just for my explanation, this man is too focused on something that's really far behind that this man is unable to notice that this man in this blue jacket moving away, and then another man in the yellow jacket have replaced the man in the blue jacket's place, but then this red clothes old man is unable to notice the change, right? Even though the man has changed, even though the man who was standing next to him on the left reading a paper has changed, this old man is unable to notice this switch. So most people focus on their direction giving, do not notice the switch surrounding their environment. This is change blindness. Now let's look at choice blindness. This is similar. This is the inability to tell your preference of something. For example, let's say you taste two flavors of jam, A and B. You think A tastes better. Later, when you're given jam B and told that it's jam A, you might not notice anything weird. You'll probably just think it's jam A like you're told. So, just similar to change blindness and all the selective attention and selective inattention regarding to the area of perception, to the theory of perception, you might not be able to perceive how there is an actual change in the thing that you choose because you just strongly believe that you're given what you're told to be given, right? So being unable to notice a change is actually also arising from your perception to selectively really adhere to like a theory or to a fact that you're told because you want to believe in doing so, because that entertains your interest. Now let's look at something called transduction. Transduction is the conversion of one form of energy into another. For sensation, this refers to the way physical stimuli energy is transformed into electrical signals, such as the neural impulses taught in the previous lecture. This is required for our brains and spinal cords to interpret the stimuli. So when you perceive an information by looking at something, for example, you're looking at my study guide right now, right, through this lecture. Now, this information that you see and the information that I tell you verbally, which will go into your ear, these kind of information will be transformed into electrical signals, which will be now converted into something called the neural impulses and will reach your brain for it to analyze and perceive, right? So this transformation of a stimuli, of an information that you sensed from a stimuli, to the information that you perceive in the form of a neural impulse is called transduction. The change in the form of information that is required for information to reach your brain. Now let's look at the overall process of sensation and reaction. The receptors will receive a physical stimuli, and then the afferent neurons, with an A, will detect what is sensory. Then the information will move on to your brain and spinal cord, and it will be done so by the interneuron. Now I want you to focus on this prefix inter. Inter means in between, right? In the middle, in the midst. So interneuron means that it's in the middle between the afferent neurons, the perceiving neuron, and the final neuron of like where you kind of actually perceive something, which is called the efferent neurons, with an E. So efferent neurons are actually in the motor cortex, and then they are responsible for knowing, for perceiving the information that you sense through your afferent neurons. Then your efferent neurons, with an E in the motor cortex, will lead you to actually engage in an action, to do something. So the information that you sense through the afferent neurons, with an A, will be converted into an electrical signal that will pass through the spinal cord and reach your brain through the interneurons in the middle. And then, in the end, the efferent neurons, with an E in the motor cortex, will actually lead you to perceive the information that you have sensed, which will guide you to engage in a certain action that entertains your interest in doing something. Now, I know that afferent neurons and efferent neurons, they kind of are pronounced in a really similar way, right? So I know that it sounds confusing. It was the same for me when I first learned this. But then it's easy when you think afferent, since in the alphabetical order, A comes first, then the E, right? A is the starting point of the alphabet. So since A is in front of E in the alphabetical order, it's easy if you just think about it, right? Just A comes first, so afferent neurons comes first. And what comes first is what you sense, right? So that's afferent neurons being responsible for it. And since the efferent neurons, which is in the later part of the alphabetical order, now you'll be able to know that with an E, efferent neurons are responsible for the end, right? End also starts with E. So it is more easier for you to know that efferent neurons are responsible for you to perceive something. Now that's the end of today's lecture, folks. I hope that was really entertaining and helpful for you. See you in the next lecture. Goodbye.